All right, everybody, and welcome back to another episode of the Enough to Keep Going podcast. This is the week of June 19th, 2022, Juneteenth, also Father's Day. Gentlemen, happy Father's Day. After last week and two back-to-back episodes with enough gaming news releases, we got a little bit of news tonight. A lot of games to talk about, but stick with us for about 60 to 70 minutes, and I'm sure we'll give you something to chew on, something to agree with, maybe something to rail against us with as well. But that's all part of the fun here on the E2KG network and Enough to Keep Going. This is episode 247, and I am your host tonight, DBQ Hams, and joining me, Towmaster99. Tow, how are you, sir?
I'm doing well. Happy Father's Day to you.
Happy Father's Day to you.
Okay.
And also joining us, manning the boards, Game Logic. Game Logic, how are you?
I'm good, man. Just trying to get the social media out over here.
That sounds good. Well, I'm going to kick us in and start going then. So, we got a couple... We got games to talk about here tonight. I was going to say some new games, but looking at the list, I don't know if I'd call all of them new games in our news, in our main gaming piece here. So again, here on Enough to Keep Going, we'll start off with kind of our big games of the week, new games, key moments, then spend some time with news stories and any other games we've been playing. And then at the end of each month, we've got Pix Plays assignment as gaming dads. We've got not only to keep our kids on top of their homework, but to keep each other on top of their homework as well. So this is not that week, but this is the week to remind everybody that we do have homework for next week. So without further ado, let's talk about a new game that I got a chance to play both on Xbox through Game Pass and on Switch, and that is Tributes and .emu's TMNT Shredder's Revenge. So this is a game I was excited about as a long-time Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtle arcade fan. Someone who, as my mom would go shopping, she would drop me with a handful of quarters in front of the original arcade machine at the front of the department store and pick me back up at the end of her shopping trip. Yes, that is the type of parenting that my mother was. Granted, I was, in middle school at this time and very glad to not have to tag along with my mom and much rather would either play or be watching the original arcade machine on TMNT. Also, when Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles 2, the arcade game, came to Nintendo, that Christmas I asked for an NES Advantage stick so that I could have a joystick and get the real arcade feel on my slowdown infested NES game machine. But I did get my personal pan pizza coupon along with my game. So all that legacy meant that I was very interested in TMNT. It is a game that has a great pedigree, that it is not only by the developers of Streets of Rage 4, but also the GBA game TMNT based on the mid-aughts computer-animated Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles movie. The movie was relatively forgetful, but the GBA game done by Tribute is a great 2D brawler in that classic TMNT arcade feel. So putting both of those developers on this one game, I was excited about it. The news only got better with multiple player characters, and I gotta say, after playing on both systems, it's a lot of fun. Like, if it's not anything revolutionary, it's a nice blend of kind of the classic jump attack that you would get in the classic arcade games, but it does throw in a combo system. It throws in some grabs. It throws in, you can do a dodge roll. The dodge roll not only is kind of a invincibility to get out of a way of attack, but also the dodge roll to then into an attack can move you out and come back and attack an enemy from behind or catch them off guard. So it takes some of the little bit of layers that Streets of Rage 4 added to the brawler genre and puts it on top of TMNT. There's story mode, more or less. It's a story, right? It feels very at home in the early 90s arcade in terms of a general premise. But in the story mode, as you go through the levels, there's some hidden collectibles, there's some side quests that open up. And then there's also just a straight up arcade mode where you only get X number of continues and no saves, and you kind of have to make your way through the game without it. So I haven't seen all the levels. I've read it's probably around 12 levels or so. A variety of enemies that return from both the cartoon and also from some of the NES, SNES video games, Turtles in Time, the Manhattan Project, all kind of show up here as well. I'm just loving it, right? I mean, I knew what I was hoping to get out of it, and it's exactly what I'm getting out of it and more because of the extra layers of kind of brawler combat. Granted, I'm somebody who enjoys a brawler. It's not something I'm going to sit down and play 2 hours of in a night, but it's great to kind of dip in and out of, put down a couple quarters into the machine and play for 20 minutes and get my fix and come back. Playing on Xbox on a 55-inch TV, the sprites seem a little blown up, but playing handheld on the Switch, the sprite work is magnificent. It's really detailed. The movement is great. There's some crispness to it, especially playing on an OLED on the Switch. So the graphics that they put together, hold on to that kind of classic feel, but also make it feel pretty modern as well. So it's on Game Pass, so if you have Game Pass, it's available. Otherwise, it's pretty much out on every other console, including PC. Gentlemen, any questions, thoughts? Any long-running fans of Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles here? Tao, did you get a chance to check out this game on Game Pass?
No, I didn't. I'm not yet. I wanted to. I just didn't get a chance yet. But did you play multiplayer?
Haven't played multiplayer yet.
No. Okay.
No. But yeah, it definitely. I mean, I've already told my kids that part of my Father's Day gift is you're going to play some Teenage Mutant Ninja. You're going to play a brawler with your dad.
Yeah,
so
play with me.
Yep. Come, don't you guys want to play with me? Nobody wants to play. But it also has. That's a good point. It also has online matchmaking, so you can randomly jump in with anybody else in terms of an online match and play through it. And again, because communication really isn't that important in a brawler, and there's no friendly fire damage, so it really isn't that much of a worry. So it does allow that kind of jumping in next to a total stranger in the arcade kind of feel and playing through, and maybe not getting the character that you love because they've already got it. But so it adds that layer in there as well. But it definitely seems like it'd be something that you and your son would enjoy playing together.
It's more than 4, right? 4 people?
It's up to 6 players.
Okay, that's what I thought.
And it does scale. From what I've been reading, it does scale. The enemies are a little more aggressive. It doesn't throw a whole lot more enemies, but they become more aggressive. So on a 1 player, on a kind of the normal mode, at least in the first couple levels, they definitely kind of slow down their attack pace. So you've got time to position, you've got time to attack first. But I could see where suddenly with 4 to 6 players on the screen, if they start getting really aggressive, it could make it a nice, fun kind of competitive piece here.
Yeah. I don't know about the 6 because it seems like just kind of watching videos and stuff of it, clips, it seems like I get really chaotic. I mean, I know you got the green turtles and most of the enemies are like purple or like blue or something, but
yes, I can see it would get really cluttered unless you're on a bigger screen, right? Because playing on a smaller screen, because it is a brawler, you're still kind of moving kind of foreground and background on that kind of 2D plane, so there's not a whole lot of space to get out of the way in something. And especially if you're all trying to position to not get attacked by the enemies funneling in from the left or right side, it could get cluttered, certainly.
Yeah. But I mean, even on a larger screen, it's the same resolution, right? I mean, just packing those additional 2 people on the screen. What's been the buzz? So when a game like this comes along, we always get the argument, if you change 1 iota from the classic, right, then people are flipping out. So just kind of what's been the buzz in terms of, the changes versus, right, play. Does it have a classic mode where you can remove any of the new modernizations they've put on it?
Not that I've seen. I from all the reviews that I've been reading and kind of the threads online, people were hoping and I think that .emu had kind of messaged it in such a way that they were building on some of their lessons they learned from Streets of Rage 4, which already kind of tips their hand of this is going to be more complex than just a 2-button kind of 2D brawler. And so people feel like it's an evolution more than it is kind of a betrayal of game design.
And you have infinite lives, I'm assuming.
In the story mode, yeah. You have a number of lives and you get continues, yeah.
You just keep going. Okay. I was just wondering.
Yes.
Back in the day with those arcade games, it was pretty brutal. You'd have to spend a whole bunch of money just to get through. I don't know if they just gave you a set amount or just kind of said, all right, yeah, just keep going until you finish. So
yeah, in the arcade mode, you do get a normal. You still get 7 lives. It scales up or down if you're on easy or hard, and then you only get. I'm not even sure because I haven't exhausted my continues on it. So, but you only get a limited number of continues. So it does kind of force you to try to make your way through. All right. Do you have another question?
I feel like in a week that that I finished watching Stranger Things season 4, that this is an apropos release, and I feel like I should have a lot of questions about it. But I, of course, haven't played it. What do you think? So your kids are a little different. They've been exposed to kind of legacy game design. What are you expecting in terms of their uptake on this game? In terms of the modern stuff that they've played versus kind of this rearward-looking kind of design pattern.
Yeah, I would say that it is probably not something that is not going to hook them in the same way that Smash Brothers or a more modern game design aspect would. The 3 of us have played things like last year's Space Jam 2 game, which was a 2D brawler. We played Streets of Rage 4 together. They're familiar with this type of game design, but it's something where we play for an hour in an evening and it's a kind of fun time and we move on to something else. That said, my entire family, including my wife, have all, at an arcade on the East Coast, we've all dropped close to $10 to play Simpsons arcade game and finish it all the way through, right? So there's an appreciation for the Konami kind of 2D brawler design, but again, it's a limited scope aspect of it. I think I know that this will be a game that I kind of come back to because of my legacy and history with this type of genre and this franchise, but it's also not a game that you're going to see me suddenly put in 20 hours in one weekend either. So a game that you certainly could put 20 hours in a weekend is Call of Duty multiplayer. And a few weeks ago, Game Logic, you were saying you're going to dive into Call of Duty Vanguard. But as I look on the list tonight, that's not the game you're going to be talking about. So what happened? How did you end up back into Cold War?
Yeah, and this is yet another game that is apropos to playing. This is a 1980s theme. I should have titled the episode something about the 80s. So I have been playing Vanguard, but Call of Duty Black Ops is also in the rotation. A few weeks ago, I realized that they continued putting... So the word on the street seemed to be that as soon as Vanguard came out, they were done putting content into Call of Duty. But they actually did 2 additional seasons after the launch of Vanguard. So there's 6 seasons of content in the game. There were additional maps that I hadn't played. And so there were additional skins and unlocks and all sorts of other things. And that at least generated an interest in me to go back. But the other thing was that I don't like Vanguard as much. Black Ops is still fun, and people are still playing it. So I'm like, if PvP, I mean, the skin unlocks, I've had a difference of opinion with people who are, I mean, skin unlocks and content is an important part of the Battle Pass business model. It is not necessarily inherently the be-all, end-all for me. What's still important to me is game mechanics and the competition. And that's still good in Black Ops Cold War. So,
yeah, I mean, that game is solid, and if people are still playing, I could see it still could get pretty competitive.
Yeah, absolutely. So I'm not as good at the new maps because I'm not as experienced. I don't know patterns and plays to run kind of in my head. Back during that year when I was really hardcore on Black Ops, I talked to you guys multiple times that kind of a lot of times it's like running a game of full court basketball. So I have plays in my head, right, every time I spawn, right, of places I'm going to go and things I'm going to do and where I'm going to mantle and things like that. I don't have those patterns in my head for Vanguard. So it's fun going back. But actually the reason, maybe that's actually more important for me going back, given that I'm not super crazy about Vanguard, you earn in Cold War, and it affects your Vanguard experience. So XP, so I'm earning against the Vanguard Battle Pass in Cold War. So the XP that I gain counts towards not only the Battle Pass, but my rank. So I'm progressing towards Prestige by playing the Call of Duty version that I'm better at, and I'm like, okay. But the point at the end of the day will be eventually to get back to Vanguard. They're both kind of in the rotation, but I'm not going to look a gift horse in the mouth either for the game that I'm better at and that I have a better ED at, etc. So I went back and just kind of played with a lot of the things that I had set up. I hadn't necessarily completed everything as far as like every unlock on every sniper rifle and stuff like that. So it's a good time going back. I'm not as wrapped around the axle about those unlocks, but I have so much stuff that after a few days of playing, and I played probably about 6 nights in a row last week. I definitely need to. I'm at the point now where I kind of need to tear down all of my loadouts and kind of rebuild them. One of the things that I continue to enjoy about this game, and I wrote a lot about on Twitter today, so much of my gaming pattern that started from that one episode challenge in 2018 that led me to Star Citizen and then to paths thereafter. I used to think going through this journey that it's been about, I don't know, there's so many different things that I thought that it's been about. And what I realized last night is that it's really about engaging in the never-ending story, right? It's about the persistent progression, but in very similar fashion to when I cut the cord with TV, I just got tired of a product that I owned dictating to me how I wanted to how I could experience it, right? And just as I got tired of like, I don't want you to tell me when I'm supposed to watch an episode. Like, that's just an antiquated way of being, and that's not my life, our life in the 2000s. And by the same token, I'm really just kind of, I appreciate them and I appreciate their artistic quality, but I'm just really tired of being given a linear story that I have to go to point A and point B on. And whether or not it's near linear wide path or even if it claims to be open world, all of those experiences are something short of a sandbox. And I'm just at a point now where, right, unpacking a game and feeling the burden and the anxiety of an obligation to get between those 2 points, I'm just kind of over it for right now. And so, Call of Duty Black Ops, I played 6 nights a week, but those have ranged from, nights when I come in and I grab an energy drink and I've got 2 or 3 hours in front of me and I can play 2 or 3 matches and then get up and let the dog out and go grab a soda, right? I can play, but I can waver back and forth between being intense and taking a break. And there have been nights that, like, I've gotten off like the Brat podcast, and like I could jump on for 30 minutes and play 3 maps and push myself back away from the table and not feel obligated to eat right $20 worth of all you can eat because I paid $20. So it's been an enjoyable experience going back to it from that aspect. And again, I'm really super stoked, right, that it pays towards Vanguard, where I'm now like on Vanguard I still had to go through the basic military ranks before I break into Prestige. So I've like in a week like climbed to like military rank 42. And blown through, through I think like 30 something levels of like the battle pass. So it's neat. The launcher question that we hit on a couple weeks ago, I don't know exactly what Vanguard does, but when you install Call of Duty and you fire Call of Duty, the launcher that comes up has the Modern Warfare 2 preload, Warzone, and Cold War. It doesn't have Vanguard in it, even though I have Vanguard installed on the same machine. I'm assuming when I go to Vanguard, it'll be the opposite, just with Vanguard in it.
So that was my experience as well, because after we had this conversation 2 weeks ago with Vanguard only having the pre-order Warzone and Vanguard, I went and loaded up Call of Duty Cold War on my PC, but I don't own Vanguard on my PC. So I saw what you saw, but I was curious in your case because you had both installed. But yeah, it looks like they just shrunk down that launcher. So you got and I think that also makes a whole lot of sense in the same vein of the cross progression between Cold War and Vanguard in terms of rank. Like they want to keep you in the infrastructure, keep you in that system, regardless of what game you're playing, because they know that they can push out another game to you as long as you stay in that system. Yep.
Yeah, and it prevents them from experiencing a thing. It's a hedge against experiencing the thing like all the people who like Cold War don't like Vanguard and would have just fallen off the face of the earth. But they've got a hook to keep you in there. From a software development perspective, what I'm super curious about is whether or not that launcher is what we refer to in software as a CSCI, a computer software configuration item. So whether or not it is a singular software entity that executes, right, whether or not you launch either, and whether or not there's then a pointer, right, to point at one install or the other, or if they're actually 2 discrete launchers. Just out of curiosity of like where they're going to progress from here in pulling everything together. If it's one launcher that has a pointer at multiple installs, that would be a very efficient way to progress towards the world that they've talked about under Modern Warfare 2, where all Call of Duties are going to exist kind of with within one notional fabric, and it's going to give you access to everything versus a separate app launching. And a way for me to test that I'm curious what would happen. So Halo Infinite, I don't know exactly how it does it, whether it's multi-threaded or what. It's weird. I've never actually tried playing it this way, but it will launch multiple instances. So you can launch an instance of Halo Infinite, and then you can launch another instance, and they will both be running in the launcher. Now, whether or not you could actually play both, and how in the world, what that would do, whether that would just crash your PC or what, I don't know. But multiple instances of Halo Infinite will launch. So I might be curious to test that with Call of Duty just to see if they're the same launcher or a discrete launcher, just out of curiosity.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see, especially the way they've been messaging Modern Warfare 2 in terms of being a whole different engine and being their kind of next evolution of that. Like you said, the pointer aspect as a separate application would allow that flexibility more than something running within the game having to jump in and out of 2 different game installs. All right. So, Tao, you have not been playing something from the 80s or something referencing the 80s, but you have gone back to the mid 2010s and you've been playing Rust. How did this happen?
Yeah, I've been kind of interested in the game for a while now. If you don't know what Rust is, it's like a open world survival game, and I'm playing on PC. And I got it a few weeks ago, actually, on I think a Steam sale at some point. There's always sales going on, so it was super cheap, so I just picked it up. But I just got around to playing it this past weekend, not this weekend, the earlier weekend, previous weekend, and it's I haven't played too much of it, but it's definitely something you kind of have to sit down. This is another game where you have to just kind of look up online how to do things. So it doesn't really tell you much when you first get dropped into the world. So you just get thrown into the world. You got to find and scavenge for stuff and craft different weapons and tools and stuff like that. But I'm like super early in the game. Excuse me. Now I think right before I logged off, I finally was able to craft a pickaxe and an axe, so I can get like wood and rocks and stuff like that a little bit easier than I was before. Like you just start off with this like huge rock that you can just bash things with. So it takes quite a while to get anything with that rock, which I don't know if I just happened to like have the necessary resources once that original that first rock broke, because I was able to craft I think an axe. That was the first tool actually. So I don't know, like if I didn't have the actual tools that I needed, like if that rock broke, like would I just be like totally like screwed, or what would happen? So luckily I was able to do that. And then you can kind of scavenge. There's like barrels and crates and stuff around the island that you can like break open and get stuff from. So I was doing that, and it's like I jump into the crafting system, in the menus, and it's just like, whoa, it's like a big tree basically of different stuff you can do. So I was just like, I gotta, I'll have to watch some videos and try to learn some things. And then another reason too that I wanted to play it was I had started watching this one video series on YouTube. Forgot the guy's name right now, but it was just kind of interesting just watching him, go through the game. And obviously he's been playing for years. And this is, like you mentioned, it's been from early 2000s, so it's been around for a while. And I kind of just went back to his video series, like from the early start of when he was playing, and just kind of I'm starting to go through his videos. So it just kind of got me jazzed. I was like, let me give it a try. So like I said, I'm super early in, and I don't even have like a base or any kind of like hideout or anything. I just like before I logged off, I just got into like this big bush. I was like, all right, I'm just gonna lay down here and hopefully I'm not dead when I log back in. So more than likely I probably
Does
will
it
be.
still do that? I mean, I remember that when it was out in early access, and then when it came out, that it was one of those where it was a persistent server that if you logged off, somebody could come and take your stuff, while you weren't logged in.
Yeah, it's that's kind of the part of the gameplay is like, this kind of chess match with, trying to, get stuff and keep it safe and have others not raid it. That's basically what happens. That's one of the reasons I started watching this guy, because he's kind of funny, and then just two, like all these different ways he raids bases and stuff. Like it's sometimes just be on his own, and he's this massive huge base that he raids, and he jumps in there and grabs some stuff and then jumps out. So it's just interesting. But yeah, it's a persistent world. So when you go in there, it's just like a browser of servers that you can pick from. I guess they're official. I don't know I think there might be a mix of official maybe, or just stuff that you can, people that created their own. So they were just like a big mix of stuff. So I didn't even sort the list or anything. I just like jumped into one. So I'm hoping it marks that one, kind of like an arc. Like when you join a match or join a map, it actually marks it right away as a favorite. So that's kind of nice. I don't know if it does the same thing in Rust or not. So hopefully it does. Otherwise, I'm just going to start over in a new map. So I don't know. I'm assuming that there'll be some kind of like, it remembers you, where you left off, hopefully. So, but I'm gonna continue to play this, and I don't know. I guess I'll have to, trade between this and Ark, because I'm still playing that too. I'll talk a little bit more about that later.
All right. Well, I'm going to jump into something else that I've been playing. Is this week was Steam's NextFest. So I had a chance to download. I probably download about 15, 16 games. And I just want to hit on a handful here that I really enjoyed and have wishlisted, something I want to keep my eye on. So the first is Agent 64, which is getting some press. It is pretty much, in the design doc of GoldenEye and Perfect Dark. It even has kind of the filters for the fog effect and kind of a CRTV. It controls either keyboard and mouse or controller, and it's very much in that limited. There is no jump there. It is if somebody if there was another first-person shooter on N64 after Perfect Dark, in that same kind of vein. Then another FPS is Angry Foot, and this is by Devolver Digital. It was in their showcase. Angry Foot is the one where it's kind of cartoony, first-person shooter. You're kicking down doors with your foot and clearing rooms as you go. First, you start off with just your foot to kick through stuff. You eventually get some weapons. You get extra bonus points for clearing spaces only with your foot. You can upgrade and get different shoes. Some shoes give you more bullets or give you bullet time as you kick through a door. The gameplay, it feels very reminiscent to Rico and Rico 2, which I played last year, where you are kind of room clearing and there is this kind of slow motion aspect as you go. The demo's relatively short, but it's a lot of fun and something I'm definitely keeping an eye on. As many Devolver games are something I'm interested in. Slope Crashers is a snowboarding game with animals. Relatively arcadey snowboarding game, pretty fast pace, works pretty well. Nice combo system. Kind of early in development. The graphics look pretty polished at this point, but there's not a whole lot there in terms of other than outside of a slope. So it'll be interesting to see what kind of game, if this becomes a run based, if it's simply just unlocking multiple courses as you go. Another sport avenue game is Spike Air Volleyball. So SPIKAIR. You don't see many volleyball games, or at least I don't see many volleyball games nowadays. So this is a 4-on-4 kind of court volleyball. It's pretty detailed in terms of the types of bump sets and spikes you can do, ball control. At first, it felt like the collision detection was a little. Well, the window was really tight to hit a spike. There's actually a patch that came out this weekend for it, so it is something that if you've ever enjoyed a volleyball video game, it's definitely something to keep an eye on. Frogun is a game that was announced last year, and it looks like a PS1 platform puzzle game with some like a high-res pass over it. It's a lot of fun. It's very kind of charming, and I had flagged it last year because of its art style, and its gameplay was really enjoyable. Lots of hidden secrets as you kind of move through some neat mechanics. So that was fun. Koa and the Five Pirates of Mara is another 3D platformer. Pretty standard in terms of what you think is a 3D platformer. Fun kind of Pixar-like graphics, kind of cartoony, but you've got a butt stomp and a roll and you're moving your way across pirate islands, and it'll be interesting to see what that comes out in if you like 3D platformers. XEL, I'm not even sure how to pronounce XEL, capital X, capital E, capital L, it is a top-down but kind of full polygonal sci-fi Zelda-like kind of puzzle adventure game. The art style looks really good, really kind of bright, colorful. The character designs are very cartoony, and yet at the same time, their dialogue is incredibly sarcastic and probably PG-13 related. So there's a little juxtaposition there, but it's something I want to keep an eye on. Spark the Electric Jester. There's a 1 and a 2 already. Spark the Electric Jester came out 2018, I think, 2017, looking like 16-bit Sonic. Jester 2 kind of moves into a 3D Sonic with kind of Saturn-like graphics. This kind of keeps evolving that kind of 3D Sonic speed, and the graphics look somewhere between Saturn and Dreamcast in terms of their quality. Finally, and this is our tie back to the 1980s, is WrestleQuest. So this is heavily featuring Macho Man Randy Savage. You start as, Randy Pompo, his original name, but they're your toys, your little toy characters. There's a little Lego guy, a little alien guy, and you are making your way through to become a real wrestler. And the battles in the in the ring play out like a Paper Mario game in terms of attacks and button timing, except instead of like a magic attack, you have a finesse attack. You have your special move. You have your suplex or a flying knee drop, and you have to mix up your attacks because you also have a crowd meter. So you need to keep that crowd meter up. If you only just do a standard attack each time, your crowd meter is going to go down, and even if you whittle somebody down, you won't be able to pin them, or you won't get as many bonus points or charisma points at the end. So interesting art style, kind of very pixelated 16-bit kind of style, but it plays, there's already Randy Macho Man Savage, Junkyard Dog, all kinds of different homages to classic 1980 WWF, WWE type of wrestlers. So that's a quick rundown in Steam's NextFest demos that I got a chance to check out. This coming week, if you're on Xbox, you get a chance to check out some other demos as well, because Xbox is having their Summer of Game Fest demos. They've got 30 game demos coming to Xbox from the 21st to the 26th. They've only announced about 4 of them so far, and this week, starting on Monday, they're going to start announcing some of the other ones. In years past, I've really enjoyed kind of tinkering through these, and have found some hidden gems of things that I've come to put on our superlative list over the years. So if you're on Xbox, you've got some free demos to kind of play around with coming next week. Tao, you've got some other news story here related to Xbox's showcase last week. So last week on the podcast, we had just come off of the Xbox and Bethesda showcase. They had also announced that there was going to be a follow-up kind of in-depth showcase later that week, and we had that with a little more gameplay, some developer discussions. So Tao, you've got some of these news stories. I'll let you take the wheel.
Yeah, so just a couple updates from a couple of games that we were talking about when the showcase come out. So Wolong. Sorry, my computer.
That was a Team Ninja game.
Yeah,
Wolong the Dynasty. Yep.
Came up here. So they're talking to one of the. Let's see what this guy is. I'm sorry. I just kind of lost my place here when I came back to this page here. Talking to one of the developers here, producer. I'm sorry. Of the game, and it's basically he was saying it was going to be basically like a Souls-like, so like Bloodborne, Demon Souls, Dark Souls, that kind of gameplay. And I guess we're all trying to figure out what it was, because basically just a CGI trailer that they had showcased at the time. This is during when he mentions here in the article, during the Yellow Turban Rebellion, back in ancient times or back in history. So, and I guess they're going to be kind of focusing more on like actual martial arts moves and stuff like that. Like it's not going to be like like a simulation or anything like that. But I guess they're kind of leaning into that a little bit more. You still kind of have your hack and slashes and stuff like that. But I guess the melee fighting is going to be a little bit more like grounded in reality, I guess. Obviously you're going to be fighting demons and stuff, so it's a little bit weird to say, I suppose. But yeah, he was just talking about that, and the same team that, like I said, in Ninja Gaiden and Neo and stuff like that. So should be pretty interesting to see what they come up with, especially coming from Team Ninja. I don't know. I played a little bit of like the original Ninja Gaiden back in the day. Excuse me. Those games were pretty, brutally hard. Even back then. I never played Neo. I don't know if you guys played Neo, if you had a chance to or not. I don't know if that was a little bit more forgiving or not. But it'll be interesting to see, since this is like a Souls-like game, to see like what they come up with. So I guess there's going to be
Neo had some Souls-like combat to it.
Yeah.
So this feels like an extension here. So, but yeah, you're right, Tao, that this is good to know, because we didn't really get this information when it was announced last Sunday in terms of the CG trailer.
Yeah, and they also mentioned that there's some kind of multiplayer component, and I guess there's a multiplayer something or other in Neo also. I don't know if it was like a fully, like you can go fully through the game with another person or not, but they haven't really specified though yet what that's going to be in this game. So it'll be interesting to see like what they come up with. And I've been enjoying Elden Ring, which I kind of blanked on that name before when I was going through the list of names, but so it'll be interesting to see, and kind of this kind of time period too. It's kind of cool. It's I was, or at least I was thinking, I don't know if anybody else was, but I was thinking, since this is kind of Koei Tecmo, is this like just like a variation on the Muso games, or like what is this? So it's kind of nice to know that at least we got some direction on what it's going to be. And it sounds pretty cool. You'll have your RPG elements too going through it, so you can build up your character and do things like that. So I'm definitely interested to see how it's going to turn out. And I don't think they really, and this article came from IGN, I don't think they gave like a release date or anything. So sometime next year, I believe, is just kind of what they've thrown out there. Still got a ways to go.
Yeah, I think 2023 was the only date that was given. But yes, I think because the subtitle is Fallen Dynasty, there was a lot of speculation of, is this kind of a Muso Dynasty Warriors type of game? And to hear that it's not, it potentially opens it up to a larger audience as well.
Yeah. All right, and then next up, Valheim, which I guess if you. So this kind of came up during the showcase.
It was in the graphic that they showed, but
Yeah.
they did not show the game. Yep.
Right. Yeah. It was just kind of a quick blurb, real quick, where they had like the 2022 and 2023 games, and this was one of them that they hadn't mentioned, I don't think, in the show or shown it. But Valheim is coming to Game Pass for PC this year, 2022, and then next year it'll be coming out for Xbox Series X, and I'm assuming S too. So, which will obviously be on Game Pass when it comes out on Xbox also. So that's cool. I was interested in this game also back in the day, or when it came out, but I was like, I had all the kind of stuff. So, just another building bases and kind of survival game that was on PC. So it'll be interesting to see how it runs on the Xbox. So I'll have to wait till next year. But it's kind of nice that now that I have my PC, that I can actually, I'll be able to jump on into that game this year. And then the second article I had was that there will be cross-platform play between Xbox and PC. Now I don't remember. Trying to look for it earlier. I don't remember if they said if you can play with Xbox and Steam, or if it's just going to be Xbox and Game Pass PC PC plays. So I was trying to look for it before, and I couldn't remember if I mentioned it in this article or not. But at least there'll be some kind of PC and Xbox gameplay. I think there was. I think they did say you can play on Steam too, and Xbox. So that'd be kind of nice. So you don't have to be tied. I know some of the other games sometimes kind of get tied down like that with the cross-platform. So, but it's nice that they actually mentioned that. So, another game.
Game Logic, did you have the Supermassive story here in terms of the Quarry, or was that you, Tao?
Nope, that was me.
Okay, well, I'll kick it over to you and Supermassive and a little bit of Stadia conversation as well.
Yeah, so I put this in here just because of its relevancy to cloud-based gaming, cloud streaming, etc. I think that's something important for us to continue to keep up with. I don't personally care that much about the Quarry myself. It's survival horror. These survival horror games by Supermassive are much more so a streamer target of opportunity than they are really.
Yeah, they're narrative adventure games. They are,
right.
Not necessarily gameplay heavy. They're your teen horror slasher flick.
Right, and they have not necessarily reviewed very well. But they have also done, I can't remember, Until Dawn, which is a little more critically acclaimed than the Dark Pictures anthology. Word, as this game has been published and gotten into the public's hands, does seem to be a lot of positive sentiment behind the Quarry, but it's also come to light that Take-Two, the publisher of the current game, has indicated that it appeared that there was an intention to make this a Google Stadia exclusive. And there's been other associated word that has come out that the same was intended of High on Life, which was kind of, to me, one of the gems of the Xbox presentation. If everybody recalls, it was kind of the quirky first-person shooter game that was based on a narrative of humans were being used as, I can't remember if it was as fuel or some other natural resource, basically, by aliens. And so you had these kind of biological living weapons with faces turned towards you that would have, these different personalities and comedic lines and everything. And so that was also looking like it was supposed to be a Stadia exclusive. And so there had been a partnership between Supermassive Games and Stadia, but nothing came out of it because Google has deprioritized Stadia, supposedly, is the word inside from insiders, sources familiar with the matter. But clearly Google has also been on record as saying, the intention of Google Stadia is now not necessarily to be a games publisher, or for Stadia itself to really be a storefront for games, but more so to utilize it as a technology, and to be positioned as an enterprise play, basically, for gaming companies looking to use their technologies. And so, Capcom, for instance, is using it to host demos of its games, such as with Resident Evil Village, and there's been reports that could expand to other games, and that may, Stadia may become the Capcom storefront solution to offering game demos rather than building out their own infrastructure, which would make perfect sense. So, and the last thing, the article notes, which I don't think is necessarily untrue, although the article doesn't word it as great, but the presence of Stadia, just like we always talk about, right? The things that we want out of the market is, regardless of who wins, it's important that there are people out there competing, because that drives prices down and drives people to make other offers and to continuously improve upon their services. And that is a thing that Stadia did. It kind of pushed everyone to get into the pool, and there was suddenly a resurged effort behind GeForce Now and Xbox Cloud Gaming. GeForce Now had been around for a while, but it was kind of a stagnant service with no uptake. And now all of a sudden it's considered relevant, right? Because, much like when Apple decides it's going to get into a product space, all of a sudden everybody goes, oh, that's a real thing, and starts making more products of the same kind of subsegment. Stadia kind of did the same thing with cloud gaming, cloud streaming. So we will see where it goes, even though we may be, waving goodbye to Stadia along the way.
Well, I think your point of kind of Stadia pushing others into Google pushing others into this marketplace. This news story comes out the same week that the revamped PlayStation Plus lineup launched as well. And on that premium platform, not only can you stream PlayStation 3 games, but you also have the ability to stream some PlayStation 4 games of a select library as well. So that is also because they have done away with the PlayStation Now branding and funneled it all into PlayStation Plus. So there is, that marketplace continues to evolve, and it will be interesting to see kind of where it settles, but there's still room for growth. There's still room for potential there. Tao, you've spent probably more time than I know you've spent more time than I have in terms of dabbling around with game streaming on Xbox Cloud, but that there's definitely some. And now with the news stories from last week of the app, the Xbox Cloud streaming app in Game Pass app in Samsung TVs from 2022, that we look to see potentially more news stories around streaming in a variety of devices as well. So let's move into the rest of our roundup in terms of the round robin of other games we've been playing this week before we call it a night. Tom, I'm going to turn the mic back over to you. You've got two of your kind of go-to classics here in the list. One being, no surprise, a battle royale, and one being a survival game. So take your pick, wrap them both together. Tell us about why Ark, how you've been bouncing back and forth between Rust and Ark, and you mentioned Ark just a little while ago.
Yeah, so a couple weeks ago, actually, I thought I was starting to wind down on Ark. Kind of plateaued what I could do just single player wise, because really you should be playing this like a team of people. Even one other person. Like sometimes I do play with my son and one of his friends, but it was they were kind of like flown away from it too. my son actually started coming back. Actually, after I did this past week, there's actually a new map that they released. Fort Fjordor. It's kind of a Viking themed map where kind of like the buildings that you can build now kind of have more of a Viking aesthetic to it. And there's some other creatures. I think like the boss is Fenrir. I forgot how to say it. It's like the giant wolf in Viking mythology. So, and there's some other creatures. I can't remember off the top of my head what their names are and stuff. But so I actually started doing that actually during the week, because I think they released the map last Sunday, and I just jumped on it real quick. I think that day, because they released it like in the middle of the day, and obviously had stuff going on. So I jumped on it real quick, and then just kind of throughout the week, I was kind of jumping in and out of that new map, and then the old map too. You can actually, I think I mentioned this, you can actually transfer your creatures, your teams, and items between the different maps. And unfortunately, I think they lock. I read like a month or two where they lock like new maps like that where you can't transfer stuff, which kind of makes sense because you don't want, kind of like, people being overpowered and already in the map. Not that I play PvP, but still, I always do PvE. Excuse me. But people will just kind of take over really quick. When you get these different teams, they can gather resources too pretty quick for you. So I think they just didn't want people building these massive complexes and stuff like that. Even though I've seen some pretty big ones so far when I've been journeying around the map. But yeah, so I got pulled back into that, and then just Fortnite real quick. The new season, chapter 3, season 2, I believe it is, or season 3. I can't keep them straight anymore. Bouncing between all these games with the different seasons. But that started up this past week too, or a couple weeks ago. So I jumped back into that. And actually, I was playing the other night with one of my friends. We kind of jumped back into it. He hadn't played for, I think, since the beginning of the year, maybe. And actually, my son too. He was the same way. So I played with both of them on separate game sessions. But I was playing with both of them, kind of jumping back into it. So we're having fun, just doing the no build mode, just because it's a lot easier for me. So while I can build fairly decently, it's the editing is what gets me, and that's what usually gets me in the end when I'm, I can build a pretty, high fort, but then the guy can like edit, through everything and just rip me apart. So, or girl. So the no build mode has been a savior for me for kind of keeping my interest. Not that I probably still have been playing even if there was no build mode, but it's kind of reinvigorated my my love for the game. So been jumping back to that. And both of those games I did play cloud too. So now I can do Fortnite on Xbox through the Xbox cloud. It plays fine. I mean, I was at home when I did it, so I haven't really tested that. I haven't tested Fortnite outside of my house, but I have done Ark outside my house because I have 5G phone now, and it plays fairly decently. So I just go in there just to do couple quick things and I bounce out. So it's kind of nice that I can do that on the go.
Nice. Excellent. All right, gentlemen. I am 1 day clean of Diablo Immortal. Today, in the last 24 hours, I have not launched Diablo Immortal. So, my board of days without incident of Diablo Immortal, 1. Yes, so I hit level 60 in Diablo Immortal, and I think I'm done. I hit level 22 in the Battle Pass out of 40, and I feel that it's not worth it. I definitely got my $5 out of the Battle Pass, out of, playing, got a lot of hours out of 2 weeks. But the Battle Pass, one of the key things toward the end game is legendary crests. Right, you get a crest every day for logging in. Your crest, you can stack them up to 3 as you do kind of a 4-man dungeon run, or a rift is what they call them. And if you add in a legendary crest, which you can, surprise, also buy, or buy things to craft them, that those guarantee a legendary rune drop. And really the runes are the end game in terms of where the power creep comes of 1 to 5-star runes. And in the Battle Pass, as you get up into the extra levels, between level 20 and level 40, I think it only gives you like 2 legendary rune or 2 legendary crests. Like it gives you a lot of cosmetics, it gives you some more crafting materials, some more gems that you can use to upgrade, but it really doesn't seem to give you a lot of the types of material or currency that you're going to need to really push the game in the upper levels. And around level 56, you start experiencing the end game pieces of getting into the shadows versus the immortals. This is kind of a big kind of faction aspect of the end game where each server has only a certain number of immortals and could have up to 2,000 or so shadows. You have to get into, there's a lottery every day to see if you get entered or get selected as a shadow. I did. You get some contracts and some other, you can raid a vault, and so there's some raids that go on. I tried a little PvP. There is the PvP battlegrounds, and so I've got a chance to dabble in the end game, and I'm okay with setting it down. It's incredibly fun. It is Diablo. It's a great kind of, you're watching something on TV and you're just kind of mashing your way forward, but it's also, like I said last week, I was starting to see how hollow it was, and it's certainly the case. And that's where I feel like I can set it down and not feel too worried about getting back into it. I might dip in again here and there, but really, it's, I paid $6. Yeah, I paid the $5 battle pass and the 99-cent starter pack, and I got way more than $6 out of my gameplay. So there's a lot of game there for free if you just want to kind of play through the game and get some Diablo on the go as kind of a very simple Diablo. There's a lot of monetary aspects where it can hook you if you really want to, as the news story from this week shows that they made $24 million in 14 days. That 13 million of that came on Apple, 11 million of that came on Android, that 43% of that came out of the US. So they're definitely making some money. Whether or not how that sustains itself over time will be interesting to see. It's, there's been plenty of backlash out there as well around some of the monetization models.
Do you know, is any of the currency or anything that you earn in the game usable in any other Diablo game? Does it
No, there's no carryover into 2 Resurrected or Diablo 3. The currency, you can earn like some platinum, which then you can use at an auction house, if this sounds familiar to you, right? Like, and buy legendary gems, or you can buy cosmetics, you can buy other things there, so there is a real money auction house. There's an in-game auction house. They are, if you, there's a monetary hook in it in a lot of different ways. Even some of the, you would think, like, after all of the pushback from Diablo 3's auction house, that they would have been reticent to incorporate that aspect into this game. It is a whole lot more buried than Diablo 3's was, and so it is not necessarily something that you need to engage with. But some of the news stories coming out this week is that the auction house actually is a way to grab some of those legendary gems, a more efficient way to grab some of those higher legendary gems than the RNG of running the raids or the rifts on challenge or with those legendary crests that I was talking about before.
It's because mobile players will accept that type of thing, and since the game primarily plays on mobile and the PC's like a courtesy, they were like, in fact, may have been the entire reason that they made a mobile game, is because they thought that the marketplace was a great idea and was a clear way to drive revenue. And if PC players don't like it, no problem. We'll just make a mobile game out of it and put it over there.
Yeah, no, it definitely is. It is a mobile game first. I mean, it plays well. Tao, I don't know if you've had a chance to, how much you've played of it. It plays really well. But yeah, the longer you spend in it, the more you start to see those layers of monetization.
Yeah, I got to level 7, I believe, like 6 or 7. I've only played mobile so far. And I'm sorry, I didn't. I kind of got distracted there by family member when you were talking. So is there any like major difference between iOS and PC? Is it just graphical then?
Not even
Or
that.
not
I mean,
even?
we talked about this
Oh,
a couple
really?
weeks ago. Is that the PC app is really just running the mobile app. It is, there is a tap to play icon on the launch screen, just like there is on your mobile. It is a courtesy to put it there, to reduce hacking or piracy potentially, but it is no different at all. Even the fact that if you're scrolling through your inventory, you can't use your scroll wheel. You've got to click and hold down like you would be touching a screen and dragging. So
Nice.
it is that same game.
On iOS, are you able to make microtransaction purchases within the game? Or does it
Yeah.
it doesn't make you like go do that somewhere else, although you can access it in the game?
No, if you're gonna buy gems or you can do that within the game, right? It pulls up the. I did it on BattleNet because I had some BattleNet credit, but it just pulls up. I've looked at it what it would do on Apple. It pulls up just like I would do it on any other mobile game. So yeah, it's all within game.
Yeah, I wonder. So I mean, I guess that means Blizzard is paying the additional 30% or whatever to Apple for every microtransaction.
I would think so, right? Because it's in game, so it's not like they were doing what Fortnite did was kind of pulling you outside of that infrastructure. Yep.
Yeah. No, it's just usually it's not unusual on iOS for them to say you can't do that because the company doesn't want to pay that extra 30%, and then have it be something like you can go to the BattleNet launcher and do it, or you can or you can do it in the PC version and then you'll see the coins or whatever present themselves in the iOS version. But I guess Blizzard decided that they're okay with that.
I'll have to try it on iOS. When I did the starter pack, I did it on Android, and it pulled up the Google Play, pay just like I would do in any other mobile game. So I would assume it would do the same thing on iOS, but given lawsuits history, who knows?
It's just a free download on PC too, then?
Yeah, it's a free download. Yep, and but it's in the BattleNet client, so it's there with, which also makes it really if I'm sitting down at my PC, yes, I have played it on PC because I wanted to continue to get my bounties because of the way the Battle Pass works is that you're not earning experience to your Battle Pass by just earning experience. You're getting tokens towards your Battle Pass. You're getting hilts by you get 20 for a dungeon, 10 for a dungeon. If it's not the featured dungeon, you get 8 for every 2 bounties that you complete. So you have to do certain things. It's almost, it's similar to the Halo aspect where you have objectives to complete to earn essentially XP towards your Battle Pass rather than just simply XP towards your Battle Pass. So, but yes, what I was trying to say there is while I was deep in the thralls of kind of burning through the Battle Pass, it was easy to launch on PC and turn on something and watch and play. But at the same time, when Diablo 3 is installed right next to it, it's hard to argue that I would get more gameplay and a deeper gameplay experience out of Immortal rather than Diablo 3. So let's move on to our last game. And after spending time talking about the very simple Diablo Immortal, I got a feeling we're going to dive into something a little more complex here. So Game Logic, take us out here with our final game.
Yeah, so in addition to all the navel gazing I've been doing about what games I want to play, I've been gorging very heavily on PvP first-person shooters, but as I turned the corner this weekend, I was like, those games facilitate, like I said, that jump out, jump in capability that I'm really getting around to a number of them, right, in a very satisfactory way, and I started to see, some daylight in the seams where I could squeeze in, start kind of weaving in some additional genres. So I put simulations back on the platter this weekend, and decided to go into Digital Combat Simulator, which is or DCS World specifically, which is a game that is on Steam. It is very similar to Microsoft Flight Simulator, where there are a ton of plugins for different types of aircraft, and so this game is a kind of build your own simulator thing where you buy the base game, and I think you get then like the Su-25 and like some other like very generic aircraft, but they're basically like not really campaign kind of aircraft. They're more like, here's how you like learn to play the game. And so I have a few plugins for this. I have the A10C Warthog plugin, the FA18 plugin, and then this weekend I also picked up the Mi-24P HIND plugin. And so if you're not familiar with the Mi-24, it is a very big, ugly Soviet-era attack helicopter. It was kind of the nemesis of the AH-64D Apache, featured prominently in tons of movies. It's a two-seater aircraft with this kind of leveled pilot-co-pilot arrangement where the pilot sits down in front and the gunner, co-pilot weapon officer sits elevated and behind them. And so I've started playing that. I haven't scheduled to live stream it, and one of the things I've determined is that I'm no longer going to do like my training on live stream. I'm going to try and do all that in the background so that by the time I do the live stream, I'm actually just playing the missions. That's a tall order. There was something like a 72-step startup sequence to the Mi-24 HIND. It's a very daunting thing. It's a 79-page PDF instruction manual, and then 3 training missions, which I'm like, somehow I have the feeling that you don't get across all 79 pages of the flight manual in 3 training sessions. So I think I'm still going to have a lot to figure out. So I've played that for the last couple of days. It's a pig of an aircraft. It is incredibly nuanced. It's super powerful. It's one of the fastest helos in the world. But like once you apply the slightest amount of power, the thing just goes, which means it tends to not hover very easily. It is also not as computer assisted as the HA-25, I guess the Frogfoot or the Hokum or one of those 2 helos, which I've spent some time in other simulators. And it's old. It's just kind of like an antiquated weapon system, so it feels like flying a World War II fighter in a lot of cases. Like I went through this with the A-10 Chuck Warthog too, but like the number of steps you have to go through to fire a weapon, I'm like, dude, I'll run out of fuel before I get a missile off in this thing. And with the Mi-24 HIND in the game, you also have to do this herky-jerky where you can't fly the aircraft and fire the weapons because that's being done by 2 different people. So it has this AI-assisted mode where you allow the AI to take on the role. You can allow the AI to take on the role of the pilot or the gunner. I ran into lots of problems this afternoon giving flight control over to the pilot. The aircraft just started doing all sorts of crazy stuff. So I think by and large I'm going to need to like switch to the gunner seat to like prepare all the weapons, and then switch to the pilot seat to then fly the aircraft, and then just tell like the weapon officer right to shoot the missile once I've kind of got it all set up. So it's a very interesting thing, but in terms of like when I've played this game before and where I've come through like the power levels that are on some of my PCs now, I played this on my system with the 3080 Ti. And pulled like 30 to 40 frames per second, and the thing just became a giant toaster as I was trying to run this. And I'm like, I've been engaged in a lot of conversations about like PC gaming versus console like this week, and I'm like, guys, like you need to understand an application like this like will never run on a console, right? That is the difference between like console gaming and PC gaming. As there's been a lot of conversations about like Microsoft Flight Simulator and all that kind of stuff, and the 4K 30 discussion around like Starfield, and I'm like, but it was a great example of like the type of thing that would absolutely require a PC to even make it feasible. And I'm sitting here with like one of the top tier GPUs in the world, and I'm getting 30 to 40 frames per second. So now that's again with details turned on, and I mean you can certainly turn those things off and everything, but really great experience, lovely time always, breaking out the sticks and playing with that. I used that with my Logitech Extreme 3D Wingman controller, and actually it's one of my weird setups. Normally I use a flight control system where, it's all the same vendor, but the Logitech 3D Extreme Wingman, like, there's no throttle system that gets sold with that. It's just a standalone flight stick. It's really something that was made for, like, space simulation games. But I paired that with a CH Products Pro Throttle USB throttle lever. So it's a pretty neat setup. CH Products doesn't make a lot of stuff anymore. They used to kind of be one of the top tier flight control system HOTAS manufacturers. So it was really neat. This throttle system has been around. It's an old venerable system that tons of people used to use and love back when CH Products used to make full systems. But so it's neat being able to finally go back and get I don't want to call it an antiquated piece of gear, but it's one that's been around for a very long time. Whereas I tend to most of my flight control systems and HOTAS are kind of the newest thing, but have had a ton of fun time with that and looking really forward to getting into some of the other plugins and playing around with that. Probably not the smartest idea to pick one of the most difficult helicopters to fly to get into it, but it also makes it interesting because Microsoft Flight Simulator, one of their things that they're delivering this fall with the 40th anniversary is helos. I think people are going to be surprised, right? At the extreme differences it takes to fly a helicopter versus a fixed-wing aircraft. So, should be a good time for those people.
Yeah, I mean, even just the simplified flying of a helicopter in some of the classic battlefields, like there's a lot more complexity there, and let alone when you try to make it a simulator. I do appreciate the nice bookend here of the 1980s Cold War military aspect of Call of Duty and then flying a HIND. So my 80s action movie self really appreciates that symmetry. So, all right, gentlemen, thank you.
Can I ask one quick question? Sorry.
Please ask as many questions as you want.
So is this just flying these vehicles, or do you actually do battles, or is that like an add-on or something for this game, or is it just like strictly just flying? You're just flying the vehicle.
Yeah. Really. No, it's digital combat simulator, so it is a combat flight simulation. Oh, right. When you buy these packs, what you normally get is so this. And what I was trying to describe is this is really a survey sim and really an ecosystem. It's a lot like I think I added to the list, or I need to add to the list. I also need to add train simulations to my playlist. But this is a game where you buy the base and then you build out what you want. So the expectation, right, is that like really nobody has the exact same DCS configuration because everybody's going to pick. There's like 80 something or like almost 100 different flight packs of like different aircraft. But normally when you buy these things, you get like the aircraft, the manual, the training missions, and then some type of base campaign. Either anywhere from 1 to maybe 3 sometimes different campaigns will come with it. But of course it has an entirely robust mission editor as well that you could create. I don't know. I need to look. I don't know if it has a campaign editor. But again, this is also one of these games where there are forums out there, right, that have all sorts of, people who have provision mods and whatnot that you can go to pull down additional missions as well. So, yeah.
I was watching a video of the HIND, and I was like, wow, so many, like read out like the dials and just everything. And I was like, holy cow! Like, do you really need every one of those? Like, wow. It's intense. Yeah,
and to say nothing of the fact that it's also super difficult because then it's all in Russian, right, on the control panel. So when you mouse over, you get a mouse over indication of what that control is, but you can't do that during combat. You can barely do that during the training missions when you're flying the aircraft, right? You really have to get to a point where you kind of memorize these controls, or at least kind of where subsets of controls are, right, on certain panels. So, yeah.
All right, gentlemen. Yeah, I will be curious to see how that experience continues for your Game Logic, and then also to check back in once we get to the fall with helicopters being added to Flight Sim to see how that compares in terms of the complexity, the realistic simulation aspects to that. So that brings us to the end of another episode. Next week we'll be back, and we will also be our Picks Plays, as I talked about at the beginning of the episode. Picks Plays this month is with all the non-E3 news and reveals going on. At this point, we kind of know what's coming or what's been revealed, but our Picks Plays assignment was to grab something from a genre, a play style, a franchise, an IP that we hoped would see something new, see something updated. Whether it happened or not during this month, we'll talk about next week. So we've got a couple games on here, but I'm going to save our discussion for next week. So, gentlemen, any other house cleaning before we head out for the night? All right. So for myself, DBQ Hams, Towmaster99, and Game Logic, this has been episode 247 of the Enough to Keep Going podcast. Thank you for joining us. Whether you've been dipping in and out of the live stream, you are picking us up on your favorite podcast catcher over the course of time, or grabbing us on YouTube, thank you for joining us. Please come back again. We're always glad to have you. And until that time, play the games you love. Love those you play with, and take care. Good night, everybody.